Hey guys, this is a extension on to Asperger's in culture, but since people are a little bit disappointed with my second video that had less on Asperger's and more on culture, this is just a cultural analysis. I did this basically because I had an Iranian post on my video that they have problems with groupthink, but isn't that just human nature? Well, yes. America has a lot of groupthink, just most are in denial. America and the West do not embrace it and consider it normal like Japan and other nations do. Their great thinkers use philosophies like Confucianism as their base, while ours use the likes of John Locke and Thomas Paine for our way of thinking. Many of the great thinkers in the West, like Albert Einstein, vilified conformity, groupthink, and the lack of creativity as horrible things. However, just like with any bias, we can't escape it. It's going to happen. What we can do is train ourselves to use proper controls to reduce and minimize the effects of the bias, which is a never-ending process. It's a lot of work, which is why groupthink is so popular. I hate it when I see someone comment on something I reposted, telling me it's either wrong or asking me for other sources. Of course, they often do it in the most condescending way too, which makes it worse. I can't believe you wouldn't fact-check better. It messed up my groupthink happiness because my in-group or intellectual memes and articles would never be wrong. Of course, mind you, when they act like that, it's not that I want to be proven wrong, I just don't want to be proven wrong by them. Groupthink makes us feel happy. We are convinced we are an individual and think for ourselves. Most of Americans at least heard from their great thinkers that groupthink was evil. To avoid it requires a certain level of work and education. So instead, we made our ideal selves be one that doesn't follow groupthink, and since our memories are rewritten every time they're accessed, we don't even realize that we follow groupthink, which makes us certain we are such extreme individuals. When I was dating, so many dating profiles I saw said things like, "I'm unique," or "I tend to march the beat of my own drum," or "I think for myself," or "I'm so against conformity." Sadly, the bias called the bandwagon effect would probably disagree with you. The bandwagon effect occurs when you change your ideas because of social pressure, but your brain remembers it as you deciding it for yourself. Most of our changes are caused by this, either from the majority, or from books or movies, or the majority of your particular outgroup. We may find the idea compelling, but we also find tone, lighting, and perceived coolness often pushes you a bit more than you would if it was ill presented. We can't help it. Our emotions affect our beliefs as much, if not more, depending on the person, than our logic. To say you think for yourself is a bit of a denial. Peer pressure always gets a bad rap. It's used as a negative in the US because it so often leads to negative habits or perceived negative ideas. In addiction therapy, however, it's well proven that a buddy system in a community can really help in overcoming addictions. You look at each other as better because they have this strength that you don't feel like you have. You feel inspired and look up to them. Turns out they're looking up to you in the same way, as there is a mutual feedback effect. The great non-Western thinkers saw this benefit and set up rules to help maintain it. The great Western thinkers saw the lockstep horrible effects that it can have and vilified it completely, instead of realizing that there's no way to escape groupthink and other biases without constant awareness and scientific controls and methods. We just denied we were affected, leading to some serious issues. The high level of conspiracy theories, religious extremes, and anti-science came from this. Science is a group consensus. It is groupthink. Thinking for yourself involves rejecting this group consensus, even if that group consensus is set up to prevent natural bias. What happened in America was akin to this scenario. You're predisposed to genetically have a harder time losing weight. Science comes out and says, "Hey, being overweight is bad." Science doesn't go into the details of it or tell you how not to be overweight. It just seems like common sense as to how it is a bad thing and how to overcome it. So what you do is mimic the perceived habits of people you view as not overweight, and while some have more success because they perceive the correct habits or stumbled on them accidentally, most don't get it and just live in denial that they are overweight because they do all the things that skinny people do. Then there are those who don't see anything positive about fat and go on the other extreme of anorexia. This is the same thing with groupthink. At the time that people like Einstein were railing for more free thinking, vilifying group thinking and other biases, and more creativity, people like Richard Feynman were realizing the power of psychological biases and began fighting for better experimental controls across all science. Science slowly pushed itself forward and now has the lowest chance of bias of any human institution. It's not perfect, but it is self-correcting constantly, unlike most that stick with a dogma. In science, even the core foundations, while slow to change, are not sacred cows in light of new data and testing. What we must do is accept that we as humans will always be susceptible to groupthink and other biases. We don't have the choice. Anything we interact with pulls up a bias. Training yourself to think scientifically can reduce bias significantly, just like conditioning one's mind to enjoy exercise and not addictively enjoy sugary and carby foods. But you will, no matter what, slip up, and you will believe something without analysis because it feels good. So you have to accept that and keep moving forward and do constant self-correcting research. What Einstein and others did was great for making people aware of the problem that is groupthink. But we also need to understand that it is both a part of us and can have benefits, and we have the science now to overcome the negative effects that groupthink brings. Because of the fact that science is so specialized and most of us do not have the knowledge or education to critique it, questioning science beyond learning from experts is near impossible. Science discovered the condition of bias and it developed the cure. So unless we are trained, as counterintuitive as it is, we must have groupthink with skepticism about science. Unless we get to the point where we have computer chips in our head, we will either stumble around in the dark convinced we have overcome our own biases, or we can use the tools of science has given us and correct for them.